So in the last couple of years, we've been seeing major inventory shortages. And of course, this has driven land sales through the roof. But one of the biggest issues when purchasing land and building a new home right now is the fact that you cannot get a well installed on rural property in North Idaho in under a 2-year period. But guess what? We have a solution. Stick around to learn what this solution is that can be taken care of in less than 2 months. Welcome back. Before we get into this trick that we want to share with you about getting your water system on your rural property installed much quicker than a traditional well, we also want to remind you guys to
always like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications so that you never miss any of our new content, and always feel free to call and or email us. We love talking shop, anything real estate, any questions that you guys might have, we'd love to chat with you.
Yes. So let's get into this. The reason that this video idea came up is because we had a member of our team who was going through a transaction on the purchase of a vacant lot out on the west side of Lake Coeur d'Alene. And there was about a week left until closing, and both parties were feeling that the transaction was going to fall apart because one of the biggest issues we have with land purchases right now is the fact that companies who drill wells in North Idaho are booked almost 2 years out. So
yeah, it's a long waiting list.
Yes, it's so long, and this process is not easy. There's a finite number of well drillers, and it's an expensive and time-consuming process. So what we were talking about was, well, we can't get the well drilled, and there's construction loans and timelines, and none of this can get done in a timely manner, so what's the point of buying land anyways? But just in random talking, the idea of a cistern came up. If you're not familiar with what a cistern is kind of like the concept of a septic tank, but it's strictly for water, and it's buried somewhere on your property. There's a couple of different ways a cistern works. It can be a rain collection system, but it can also be filled by a company that comes, just like a propane company comes and fills a tank, a water company can come and fill this cistern. So we started doing some digging to learn a little bit more about the cistern, and I have to admit, I've heard about cisterns. I think we all have maybe an incorrect idea of what a cistern is, or how, in all honesty, how great the cistern, right, the idea of the cistern is. So what we kind of want to break down here for you is what a cistern is, how it works, and kind of what the pros, a lot of pros, and maybe just one or two cons about the cistern system. So first and foremost, like I mentioned, you have a tank and it gets buried on your property. Traditionally, a well gets drilled, 50, 60, 70, hundreds of feet deep. And depending on where you're at in North Idaho, if you're around the lake, you might be drilling hundreds of feet deep.
Yeah.
If you're over the aquifer going north in more of a prairie area, like towards Athol or Rathdrum or Sandpoint, you're not going to have to drill as deep for a well. And also, the wells above the aquifer have much better flow rates. When you're around the lake, sometimes
pump that well.
Yes, and sometimes those wells have really low flow rates, and it's not uncommon to hear about wells going dry in areas around the lake where they have to drill so deep. So with a cistern, instead of a 2-year process, it can take
like 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah.
If we can get somebody out there, and it's a nice way to, even if you later down the road, want to drill a well, you have like almost a temporary hold so that you can still continue construction on your property without, again, having to go through all of those like extensions of your construction loans, because those do cost money. Everything just kind of starts to add up. So regardless of if you want to keep the cistern long term or if you want to continue later down the road, get on the wait list for a well, and in the meantime kind of go this route, it's kind of just gives you an extra option so that you're not on a complete pause essentially in your building process.
Exactly.
On your beautiful piece of property that you just bought up here.
Exactly.
You want to get on there.
Exactly. And obviously builders are really busy, but well drillers are even more busy. And the problem with the well is you could get your house done in a year to a year and a half, but then you're waiting for this well. And you cannot get a certificate of occupancy, which is required to close your loan, without a water source. And so you could have everything at the property, and then you're waiting for at least 6 months to a year potentially for your well. So the cistern can be the either great temporary solution, or it could be a permanent solution. So some of the things that we found out, which I thought were really amazing, and it kind of made me a cistern evangelical, I guess you could say, is that you're not digging as far into the ground, so you're not disrupting the composition of the earth below you. You are not tapping into contaminants and minerals that you would get in a well. You don't get those necessarily in a cistern.
Right.
So the two ways a cistern collects water, again, are through rainwater collection or through being filled by a water company that will come out with a truck and fill it. The reason that this is favorable is because we have really hard water here in North Idaho, because we've got so many minerals and iron and things like that in our water. So what do we see at our sinks and our faucets? We see the calcium buildup around the faucets. It's hard to clean. In your toilet bowl, it leaves rings with that hard water. If you have a glass door on your shower, it can be a pain in the butt trying to keep that clean. And for laundry purposes, you have that hard water. So the cistern is obviously a way to avoid having a lot of really heavy minerals and nutrients in the water. And of course, with wells, you have a filter system, but those filters are expensive. Softeners are expensive. They require maintenance. With the cistern, let me back this up. They do require a filter, especially if it's rainwater collection, but the water is not as hard, so you don't have the extensive need for a softener in those situations, so it becomes a little less expensive. The other thing too that we have learned about cisterns is just, again, like Sammy mentioned, how quickly they can be installed. We found a company for this transaction that we brought up that could get it done, I think, in 4 to 6 weeks. And there's more companies that can do an excavation of a 10-foot hole and put in a tank. Far more companies than a well company that needs all that equipment to drill. It's not as extensive of a process. The other favorable thing about the cistern is the cost. It costs about half as much as a well does, which for a temporary solution might feel like, I don't want to spend double the money. But also, you're getting into your property, you're closing out your loan faster.
It's kind of like that saying, like, you pay for convenience, right?
Yeah.
You pay a little bit more to be able to, I guess, not be as patient, I guess. But again, it's not like you can't continue to use your cistern. It doesn't have to be a temporary fix. You can continue to use it. If that is one of your, if the price point is a little bit more of a factor, you don't have to dig a well. You can just use their cistern indefinitely. But if you want a well, you also have that option. So it's kind of a nice little option for availability.
Yeah, exactly. So in addition to the ease of putting it in addition to the cost or the the expense being half, at least half of what a well costs. And then also, the environmentally friendly aspect of cisterns versus wells. It makes it a really viable option for people who own property and who are waiting and putting their plans on hold to get a well and start living living at their dream property.
Right. And when you put into the other factors to consider, paying to have a cistern put in is going to be substantially less than paying for 6 to 18 months of a rental property that you're going to have to live in while you're waiting to develop your land, because you have to live somewhere, right? So in retrospect, in the grand scheme of things, you're paying far less to just install like a temporary or not temporary water source.
Yes, that's a very good point. The other thing is, a lot of people, now that you bring the rental thing up, a lot of people purchase property, and the option that they want to pursue is buying an RV or a trailer and parking it at the property. And that is really fun until it's not fun.
It's fun until it's not.
And it can be really cold in those properties through the winter. And we get in a lot of these rural properties, they're in snow belts, they're in, rural areas that don't have a lot of services. So you're plowing snow and you're using a lot of propane or gas with generators to heat your trailer or your RV. And when you're doing that for nearly 2 years, it can break you.
Oh, absolutely. It's like your mental health is also, I think, has a price point.
Yes.
To be honest, it's like, and especially if you have kids or, even if it's just you and a spouse, like that's close quarters for a long time.
Yes.
It's just like obviously something to consider. Yes. I don't want to live in an RV.
Some people do
van
life. Some people love RV life and they're really cut out for it. But I think what a lot of people don't understand, and I've seen this time and again with new construction on rural property, is the idea of living in an RV sounds fun, but the realities of it are much different than I think what we see glamorized,
right?
In RV commercials and ads and stuff like that. So just keep that in mind. Not everyone's cut out for
Absolutely,
RV life,
people are cut out for RV van life. I'm not knocking the van life. Yeah. It's just not for me. Like, I'm obviously clearly more high maintenance than that. So don't want to live in a van.
Yes. So, like we said, we feel like this cistern hack is like the key right now in this market where contractors are flooded, where well drillers are backed up for 2 years or more. This cistern saved that land deal because the owners, after we helped educate the buyers about this option, they were like, oh, duh, no brainer. We wouldn't even
have thought about that.
Yeah, we would have never thought about that. So we just felt like this was something like, it was like a secret that needed to get out. Like it kind of feels a little illegal that we know this, and it feels like it should be shared.
Well, and everybody in our office too was like, well, duh.
Yeah.
Why has no one thought about this?
Yeah, exactly. So we hope that you keep this option in mind if you're looking to buy land, or if you've bought land and you're like, I can't believe I have to wait another 18 months for this well to be drilled. Make sure that you understand the cistern option is available. Now, a couple things I think we should note is we make this sound all rosy, but a lot of times people live on rural property and they're large acreage parcels, and people may want to irrigate, or they have gardens, or they want a big lush lawn, and the cistern may not necessarily be the greatest option if you want to do a lot of property irrigation. It's definitely probably much more viable for home use and smaller yard areas, because they do, unlike a well, they do have a finite amount of water in them at any given time, and they need to be replenished with either rainwater or a truck that comes out. And a well, again, that's an untapped source of a tapped source of water that's unlimited to a certain extent. So with the cistern, we don't have that unlimited source of water. So you do have to definitely be conscientious about your water usage, especially for irrigation purposes. Now, for day-to-day use of water around your home, for dishes, showering, laundry, things like that, the cistern is an amazing option. And then I'd say the other downside of the cistern, especially if you go the rain collection route, is what if we have a year that is a little drier? This year has been amazing.
Oh yeah, this is a cistern year.
Yes, this is the year of the cistern for sure. We've had a lot of rain.
Had a lot of rain.
Yes, but if it's a dry year, you may need to contract a company to come out and fill that up. And there are a lot of companies available, but you will be reliant on someone coming and filling that up. And some people are okay with that, and some people are not. But again, this kind of lends itself, especially if it's a rain collection system, to that off-grid lifestyle that a lot of people are looking for.
Right.
You know, you have some solar power for electrical, and maybe a cistern rain collection set up, and you could be self-sufficient on that property.
Absolutely.
Yes. So let us know in the comments, have you ever owned a property that had a cistern, or are you curious about cisterns and do you want more information? You can call us or text us, shoot us an email. We'll be happy to share information on contractors that we've come across that do this work and some of the expenses that we have kind of uncovered. And then again, we're happy to help if you guys have questions about real estate or living in North Idaho. Don't forget to, again, like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll be here next week with another video. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.